Hello, welcome to Everything Homestead. We're going to cover preserving lemons and limes today, both fresh and ones that you can dehydrate slightly just by leaving out on the counter. I also am going to be reusing some of my jars that I buy the salsa in it, and then we save the jars. I use them for canning. I reuse them 2 or 3 times. The lids are still good. And then I also use them for storing other things, like today with the lemons and limes. So first of all, this is a fresh lemon. And this is an old lemon. This once looked like that. The only difference is this has sat on the counter in a bowl. No towel in it. You want the air flowing freely through here so that you minimize the amount of mold that can grow. And over time, it becomes very hard on the outside. It starts to slowly dehydrate. The skin dehydrates. The inside stays very fresh and just packed with juice. And I'll show you that in a minute. But you want it to be firm on the outside. Sometimes, because they do touch each other, sometimes you might get 1 or 2 that will get moldy, so just toss those. And as long as they get hard, that's all you're looking for. These can last anywhere from 4 months up to a year. And as they age and they get even more dry, the skin gets drier and drier, it will become darker. It's still okay to use. You just cut it in half, and if the juice is okay and it looks fine inside, it's perfectly good to eat. So these are things that you can store without refrigeration, and it's ready whenever you are. And it's the same with the limes. So I'll bring out a fresh lime and an old lime. Same thing. One is very soft and squishy, the other one is not. Again, it just sat and dried. That's the only difference here. So I will go ahead and cut open one of these. Let's see, I like this one better. And if you look, you can actually see where the ridges are in here, where all the juice is in here in the valley. So we'll cut this open. You saw it squirt out juice. You can see that the rind is very, very thin, and it almost becomes like an eggshell and around the lemon, but it's very juicy. And I'll cut open one of the regular ones so you can see the difference. You can see the regular rind, fresh lime rind, and the dehydrated rind. This is also a lighter yellow. This is just slightly darker because it's just a tiny bit more concentrated. But this tastes the same as this one. Alright, so I'm going to show you. You can just squeeze it and you get all that wonderful juice out. Look at all the juice in here. It's not dry at all. It's actually easier to squeeze this because the rind is so thin. I can just bend it and squeeze. Look at all that juice that just came out. And then this one is the same. I'm going to do this because it's a little squirtier. This one is a lot harder to squeeze. There. You can see them side by side. So you can dry your citrus this way. You can even do mandarin oranges, limes, and lemons. It's all good, and you can, like I said, keep it 4 to 12 months. If you wait too long, then it actually starts to dehydrate inside. Alright, and I cut one of the limes open so you can see how thin this rind is and how this one is a little bit thicker. Alright, I'm going to do salted first, and then the next section will be sweet. So I have 2 small canning jars because I don't use a lot of the salted. When you place the slices in layers of salt, the juice is pulled out. So you can use the juice, which is salty, and you can use it in any kind of recipe that you would like, chicken or a Jamaican recipe. They use a lot of salted citrus. Anything that you want to kick, and you'll just keep the salt out of your recipe because you'll have salt with your citrus. So I will start with the limes first. And I'm just going to cut off the ends because there's really no juice on those. We don't want to save those. We're looking for the juice. And then I'm just going to make them very thin. It doesn't matter if the seeds are left in there or not. If you have seeds in there, it's not going to cause any kind of problem. Just strain it a little bit when you go to use it. So here I have my limes and my lemons sliced up for the salted version. I keep my salt in a canning jar because here in the Pacific Northwest our air is so moist that it just gets clumpy really fast. So what I'm going to do is take a half a spoonful or so of salt into my small jar. If you're using a larger jar, definitely put more in there. So I'm just going to put some of the salt in there. And I'm going to put in 1 or 2 slices. And then I will sprinkle a little bit of salt over that. And put in another 1 or 2. And sprinkle a little more salt over it. You can use as much or as little as you want. And the salted one honestly will last like forever because the salted one, salt itself is a preservative, so is sugar. You don't need to refrigerate this. You can if you want to. If you're more comfortable refrigerating it, go ahead, just put it in the back of the fridge, and when you need it, you just pull it out. It's not a big deal. So here we go. Layer, layer, layer. I'm actually going to put one down the side, and you can see that from the outside in a minute. It's really cute when you do it that way. Alright, and then at the top we're going to put a nice thick layer of salt. So as you can see, that's really salted. Actually, I can probably cut up another slice or 2 real quick for the... There's a little bit more room in there. I always like to pack them if I can. Let's see how that goes. We'll put one on the side here. Squish it over. Slide that down inside. Put another one up here. Squish it down. Another one. I think we have room for one more. Yep, and I will finish it off with some salt. And then you just put the lid on. And I am reusing my lids for these. So this is what it looks like right now. You still have dry salt in the bottom and along the sides. Within an hour, this is going to be filled up with juice, and it will continue to pull the juice out over the next 24 hours or so, and I'll show you what it looks like at that point. These will shrink a little bit, so I could add more lime at that point and a little bit more salt. You can use the lime itself. You can dice it and slice it so you get that really strong lime flavor, or you can just use the juice. It's completely up to you. So this is the lime. Let's do the lemon next. So here we have the lemon, and it has multiple layers of salt in there. The lemon has a tendency to get juicy faster, so you can see a whole patch here that's starting to get juicy. So we'll show you what this looks like tomorrow, and we'll move on to the sugar now. I have all my lemons sliced up to go into the jars for the sugar, the sweet lemon, I wanted to show you that when you have this kind of a lemon with the rind on, you're going to have a very strong lemon flavor because of the oils in the rind. But when you do that, it may also be just a slightly bit bitter because of all the pith, this white stuff around here. We don't mind it. It's actually a very strong lemon flavor, so we like it, and we leave it on. However, if you don't want that, if you don't like that bitter taste from, here, I can even peel some of this off. If you don't like the bitter taste from all of this white stuff, you can just peel it and then slice it, so you're reducing how much is actually going to be in there. So that's an option as well. So just like with the salted version, we're going to start off with sugar in the bottom, and I like quite a bit of sugar in the bottom because that's where all the juice is going to go. And this is going to be a lemon sugar concentrate, so I'm going to use a lot of sugar, and I know it's like a no-no in today's society, you don't use sugar, but when you're preserving something, you need salt or you need sugar, and the more you use, the longer you can preserve it. So I use a lot, and I'm just going to start tossing them in here. There's no rhyme or reason to how you do it. I like to get a little pile in there, and then I put a spoonful of sugar over them. And right now I will probably start putting a few on the edges, because that's wasted space if you don't put some of these around the edges. Alright, now I'm going to start filling up inside again. Just layering them in there. More sugar. More lemons. This turns into almost a syrup consistency, and then you can use it in tea instead of just adding like sugar or a few lemon slices. You can put this in, you get a hint of sweetness if you use the lemon slices. If you use the liquid, the concentrate, you're going to get a lot of sweetness. You can make lemonade out of this. You can use it in baking. Anything that uses lemon or lemon peel, all you have to do is take these out and chop them up, and you can use it. You can also take these out after you've used all of the juice and dehydrate them, and then you have dehydrated lemon slices or cubes or minced, and it has sugar in it, which is really good in baking. I think we're about full with this jar, so I'm going to try and squish it down a little bit. Get a little bit more room in there, because they do shrink down. You'll see that when we show you the future shots of it. Now the top part, oops, I hit the camera. The top part, you're going to put what they call a crust on it, and that is about 1 inch of sugar. It actually coats the top. It pulls the juice out, and then it creates sort of like a crystallized crust. And when I say that, I will show you later when I open the jar, you'll actually hear like a crust, like a crispy sound when we touch the sugar. And like I said, you end up using a lot of sugar, but that's your preservation method. instead of canning, you're using sugar to preserve your fruit. And you put the lid on, and here's your jar. Alright, so my lemons, I ended up with 1 quart and 2 of these Tostito sized, how many, 24 ounces jars. So I'm going to let them sit overnight, and tomorrow I will show you what they look like. Already you can see in here it's wet all the way around. The juice is just pouring out of these lemon slices. You can actually see the bubble there. I don't know if that shows up on camera, but there's actually just pure lemon juice in there. So those we'll show you tomorrow. In the meantime, I wanted to talk a little bit about what you do with the leftover pieces, the leftover rind, whether it's lime or lemon, it doesn't matter. You can dehydrate these and then put them through a food processor. You can put them through a food processor and then dehydrate them. Those are really good as lemon peel in any of your baked goods. You can also use it for tea. You can dehydrate these and use it for tea, or you can chop them up and use it for tea. And the same for the limes. I mean, lime is not used as often as lemon, but it's still a really good flavor to have. You can also put this in a jar and cover it with 80 proof alcohol or higher, and let it sit for about 6 weeks, and you'll have not a tincture. Well, I mean, you'll have a tincture too, if you wanted to use that in herbal medicine, but you can use it as an extract in baking. When I do that, I like to do it multiple times. So I will fill up a jar and I'll put the alcohol in it, and I'll let it sit for 6 weeks. Then I'll empty the jar, put more lemon or lime or coffee beans or whatever it is I want to put in there for the extract, and I'll leave it again. That's a double strength or a 2 strength, and you can do that even up to 3 times and have a really strong, potent extract. So that's another option for this. There's no reason to throw these away. You can also put them in a jar and cover them with vinegar and let it sit for a couple weeks, and then use that as a disinfectant spray on your counters, mirrors, wherever you want it. It has a lemon smell or a lime smell, and you're reusing these instead of just throwing them away. Now you can do this with lemon, lime, mandarin, oranges, any kind of citrus, and it'll turn out perfectly every time. Usually when I do this, I find the lemons on sale, or somebody gives me lemons for free, and so I make big batches. 2 years ago I made 1.5 gallons of lemon, and we used it all summer long, and I did not refrigerate it. I left it out on the counter, completely preserved in the sugar. These were leftovers, so tomorrow, after the sugar and the juice kind of pull together and go to the bottom, I will top it off with more lemon and more lime and more sugar on top, and that way my jars are completely full. So I will follow this up tomorrow or the next day, and for now, I guess it's good night. Alright, so we're checking on our lemons and limes. It's been a few extra days. We got a little busy, so I didn't get back within 24 hours, but that's okay because you're seeing more of a long-term effect of the sugar and the salt. So there's not much to say with the salt. It's just going to be salted and very dried out. There's just a slight change in color with the lime. The sugar is what everybody always goes for. So I wanted to show you that these were filled up to the very tip top, and look how much they have shrunk. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, some of them will have a chunk of sugar at the bottom. That's perfectly fine. Others won't. This is a very thin one. Look at all that juice in there. You can just see all that really good juice. You can use that straight out of the jar for lemonade. Any baking, anything you want to use it for, it's good. These are just a beautiful color. The sugar is a perfect preservative, and so right now I'm going to top it off a little bit with some leftover lemon slices, and then I'm going to put a huge layer of sugar at the top. You saw when I first moved this, this was a crust. Now that I've gotten it wet, it's just sugar. So I'll probably just, sorry, I got that out of the camera shot. I will just kind of mix it in a little bit so it's ready for the next layer. And if you look in here, this one, the sugar layer on top is basically gone. Look at all that juice in there. I don't know if you can see it moving. And the same for this. This one has more of a sugar coating in there. Let's see if we come around. Oh, let's just open it. If I can. There we go. You can see the sugar's dissolved. This is very concentrated. You don't need a lot. It's great in tea, to make lemonade, iced tea. We make a lemon cake where we basically use lemon juice and sugar, and we punch holes, you know, like with a knife or a shish kebab, and we punch holes in it, and then we pour the sugar syrup over the top. It's really, really good. So since that one's open, I'll just go ahead and start filling it with the lemons. So these are leftover lemons from the other day. Just gonna fill them up real quick. And if you use enough sugar, don't be afraid of sugar. It is a preservative, just like vinegar and salt and dehydration, canning. It's all a way of preserving food. We're preserving food right now with sugar. Just plain crystallized sugar that turns into a syrup, coats everything, and protects it from bacteria and fungus. So looks like we're gonna be able to do that. All right, now I'm going to fill it up with sugar. I'm gonna shake it, make sure all those little nooks and crannies gets filled. There we go. I'm going to run my finger around the top and get any crystals off, and then put the lid on. And there you go. Next thing you know, that liquid is going to be all the way up to the tip top. You can use the lemons, you can chop them up real fine, you can put them through a food processor and use them as zest in any kind of recipe you have. It'll give it a sweet flavor to it, but you'll also have the lemon, the zing of the lemon in there, and because they've been permeated with sugar, they're a little bit softer. So they're not like chewing a hard lemon rind, it's actually a little bit softer. Okay, and the only other thing I wanted to show you was that all my bits and pieces that I had left, I put them in a jar, and I filled it up with white vinegar, and I've let it sit, and it's perfectly fine now to actually drain into a bottle and use any way I want with disinfecting the counter, washing windows, cleaning the bathtub, any way you want to use it. You can also use this in vinegar-based marinades and salad dressings, anything like that that you wanted to flavor. You can cook with it too. You can make a marinade by adding some spices and using this and putting it over chicken and letting it marinate for an hour or two. The flavor is very strong, so don't use a whole lot. Just test it out at first, otherwise you might not like the flavor. So this is an easy way to preserve lemons without cooking, without any kind of heat. These will sit on the counter up to a year or more. It doesn't last that long in my house, but you can keep them on the counter in a cool spot out of the sun. And if you notice that the lemon pieces are sticking up above the surface of the liquid, then just add more sugar to it, or put a few more lemons in there and add more sugar to it. You need to keep the lemon pieces below the surface of the sugar. That's why that crust is so important, because it actually covers them and it draws the liquid upward, so the lemon, the citrus, is always covered. And you can do this with grapefruit, with mandarins, with oranges, with any kind of citrus you want. I wouldn't do it with pineapple. Pineapple's a whole different, yeah, totally different. Okay, so that's, I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I hope you try it, because it's a really delicious lemon syrup that you can use, and it's always on hand. Buy them when they're cheap. During the summer when you have family or friends that have lemon or lime, any kind of citrus trees that are just going crazy and they can't keep up with it, take it home, put it in half-gallon jars, use an old pickle glass jar, you can do that too. Any way to preserve them, and then you have them for a year or more.